I don't think I'll ever be able to watch cartoons again. Not the old ones, not the new ones. Not even the harmless Saturday morning reruns that used to make me feel safe. Because once you've seen the things I've seen, once you've watched that tape, you can't go back to laughing at silly voices or bright colors. Every smile looks wrong. Every joke feels loaded, and before you ask, yes, it was a VHS tape. One of those chunky plastic rectangles nobody under 20 even remembers anymore. It wasn't labeled. No title. No stickers, not even the marker scrawl of some forgotten home movie. Just a plain black shell, heavier than it should have been. The kind of object that already feels cursed when you hold it. I was a kid when I found it. Too young to know better, old enough to know it wasn't meant for me. The first time I slid it into the VCR, I thought I'd discovered a secret cartoon episode. Something lost, something hidden. Like buried treasure. I couldn't have been more wrong. People talk about creepypastas, about lost media, and haunted tapes like it's all just campfire nonsense. Urban legends for the digital age. But I need you to understand, this isn't a story I read on the internet. This is something that happened to me. Something that crawled out of the screen and never let go. The tape started innocent enough. Static. A flicker of color. The faint hum of distorted audio. I remember leaning forward, wide-eyed, thinking I was about to see something amazing. Something forbidden, and in a way I did. Because what played on that screen ruined my childhood forever. You want me to describe it, right? I bet you do. I bet you're leaning in right now, curious, thinking you can handle it. I thought the same thing. I thought nothing on a VHS could hurt me. But the tape had other plans. Every time I talk about it, even now. Years later, I feel like I'm peeling off a scab, exposing something raw and infected underneath. And yet I can't stop. Maybe it's because I want someone else to believe me. Or maybe it's because the tape wants me to share it. Here's what I'll say for now. It wasn't just a cartoon. It was a mirror. It showed me things I wasn't supposed to see. Things a child could never understand. And the worst part wasn't what was on the tape. It was how it seemed to know me. Like it had been waiting. I've told myself for years to bury this, to forget it. But forgetting isn't possible anymore, 'cause sometimes late at night when I scroll past a cartoon clip online or hear an old theme song on TikTok, my stomach turns. My brain whispers, remember? And I do. I remember the flicker of the tape. I remember the voices that weren't part of the show. I remember the moment the characters turned and looked at me. I remember realizing I was no longer just watching. So if you're here expecting some spooky story you can laugh at and forget, leave now. I mean it, click off. 'Cause once you hear what was on that tape, you won't forget either. And maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not just my childhood that was ruined. Maybe it's yours too, waiting to be shattered. Because the tape is still out there. And if you've made it this far, maybe it's already found you. Every cursed object story has an origin, right? A box in the attic, a yard sale find, some old junk left behind by someone who didn't want it anymore. Mine's no different. I was 10 years old when I found the tape. Summer break. My mom had dumped me at my grandparents' house for a couple weeks while she worked overtime. Their place was this sagging old home on the edge of town, filled with dust and creaky floorboards. The kind of house that smelled like mothballs and wood polish, where time felt slower. Boredom hit fast. No internet, no game consoles, just a stack of crossword books and the world's most ancient TV in the living room. I ended up exploring the attic, which was off limits, but when you're 10, off limits means where the good stuff is. The attic was a graveyard of forgotten lives. Boxes stacked high, rusting trunks, old clothes that smelled like another century. I dug through them like a treasure hunter, half hoping to find something cool. And buried beneath a pile of warped magazines and broken Christmas lights, I did. A plain black VHS tape. It was heavier than the others I'd seen. No label, no markings, just smooth plastic with a faint scratch down one side. I held it up to the light filtering through the slats and thought, this is it. This is my prize. I stuffed it under my shirt and crept back downstairs like I'd stolen the crown jewels. My grandparents didn't notice. They rarely did. That night when they'd gone to bed, I sat cross-legged in front of the TV. The VCR was already hooked up, its red digital clock blinking 12ing like it had been doing so since the 80s. My heart pounded as I slid the tape in and pressed play. The screen filled with static, that snowy gray hiss of dead channels. For a second I thought it was broken, but then the static shifted, and a faint hum filled the speakers. Low, off-key, like someone humming through a broken radio. And then, color, cartoonish shapes, smeared like melted crayons. Bright and wrong at the same time. I leaned closer. It was a cartoon. Or it was supposed to be. The animation was jittery, uneven, like frames had been stitched together by someone who didn't quite understand how cartoons worked. Characters flickered in and out of existence. Backgrounds warped. The colors bled. I should have turned it off. Any normal kid would have thought, this is broken, this is boring, and gone to bed. But something about it hooked me. It wasn't like the polished shows I watched Saturday mornings. It felt secret, hidden, and kids love secrets. The tape played on. The characters weren't anyone I recognized. Not Bugs Bunny, not Scooby-Doo, not even some obscure knockoff. They were generic, featureless, almost like placeholders. Their mouths opened and closed, but at first no sound came out. Then a voice, low, grainy. It didn't match the characters. It sounded too human, too close to the microphone, like someone whispering in a room not far from where I sat. I remember leaning in, holding my breath, waiting to catch the words. But the whisper wasn't for me. Not yet. The tape went back to its strange cartoon nonsense, the voices replaced by warped laughter. The kind you'd hear if you slowed down a laugh track to half speed. I should have been freaked out. But I wasn't, not then. To 10-year-old me it was thrilling, like finding a forbidden cheat code to the world of cartoons. I rewound it, played it again, listened harder this time, and in the static, between the warped colors and broken sound, I could swear I heard my name, just once. Soft, wrong, like the tape knew exactly who was watching. I froze, staring at the screen, heart hammering. But nothing else happened. The cartoon sputtered on, oblivious. I told myself I imagined it. I wanted to believe I imagined it. But from that moment on, the tape wasn't just a curiosity. It was a challenge, because some part of me knew there was more hidden in there. And I was determined to find it. The first time I sat through the tape all the way, it didn't feel like watching a cartoon. It felt like waiting for something I couldn't name. Like holding your breath before a thunderclap. The images lurched across the screen, brightly painted backdrops that melted into each other like wet paint. Faceless characters that shuffled from side to side as though searching for their lines. Sometimes they froze entirely, standing in stiff, unnatural poses while the hum in the speakers grew louder. And then, they'd twitch, Just once, a single frame, like a photograph spliced into the reel. Too quick for my 10-year-old brain to catch, but enough to leave me unsettled. It wasn't just the animation, it was the tone. Cartoons were supposed to be fun, right? Colorful and noisy, all slapstick and silly voices. This wasn't that. This was drained, hollow. The laughter, when it came, wasn't cheerful. It was warped, low, dragging, distorted until it sounded like an animal choking. And it didn't always come at the right times. Sometimes it bled in during quiet scenes, drowning out the dialogue. Sometimes it cut off suddenly, mid-gasp, like someone had yanked the plug. But what really made my skin crawl were the backgrounds. They didn't look drawn. Not really. More like photographs that had been traced and smeared. A suburban street, but too sharp around the edges, like someone had copied it with carbon paper. A living room, but with the furniture skewed at impossible angles. A playground where the swings moved on their own. Halfway through, I realized one of the playgrounds looked exactly like the one behind my elementary school. I pressed pause and squinted at the grainy image. The slide, the seesaw, even the crooked basketball hoop with the faded white paint. It was my playground. No cartoon had any business knowing about that. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself maybe they just copied a real photo. But my stomach turned as I hit play again. The characters reappeared, wandering through the wrong-angled living room. They shuffled toward the camera, heads bobbing with every jittery frame. Then they stopped, and all three of them turned their featureless faces toward me. For a second, I was sure they could see me. I froze, heart hammering. My grandparents' living room was pitch dark except for the glow of the screen. It felt like I wasn't sitting in front of the TV anymore, but inside it, caught in its flickering grip. One of the characters opened its mouth. Not wide enough for a cartoonish yell. Just a small human mouth, too detailed, too real. A low buzz filled the speakers like a fly trapped inside the tape. And then, clear as day, I heard it. "Why did you put me in here?" The voice didn't sound like a cartoon. It sounded wet, guttural, like someone choking on water as they spoke. I ripped the remote off the carpet and hit rewind, hands shaking. But when the scene played again, the voice was gone. Just silence followed by that warped laugh track. That's when I realized something important. The tape changed. It wasn't the same twice. I tested it over and over, playing sections back, hitting pause, rewinding a few seconds. Sometimes the backgrounds warped differently. Sometimes the laughter dropped out. Sometimes the characters moved when they shouldn't have. It felt alive. By the time the tape reached the end, my eyes ached from squinting at the screen. The final scene showed the faceless characters walking down a road. Just walking. Their feet scuffed against the pavement, each step looping like a broken GIF. The road stretched into a gray horizon. No credits. No music, just walking. I sat there long after the screen went black, waiting for something else to happen. A jump scare, a final image, anything. But the VCR just clicked, the tape spun down, and that was it. Almost, because the black screen didn't stay black. Faint letters scratched themselves across the static. One at a time, ELP, and then it was gone. I ejected the tape with shaking hands, the plastic warm like it had a heartbeat. I told myself it was just my imagination. Maybe the static made shapes. Maybe I was overtired. But deep down, I knew the truth. That tape wasn't just some forgotten cartoon. It wasn't entertainment at all. It was a message. And whoever or whatever had made it wasn't finished talking. The morning after my first full viewing of the tape, everything felt off, not in the obvious horror movie way. No bleeding walls, no demonic voices booming from the vents. It was subtler than that, which somehow made it worse. For starters, the house felt smaller. I'd spent every summer of my childhood in that creaky old place, running up and down the stairs, playing hide and seek in the hall closets. I knew every corner. But now, when I padded downstairs for breakfast, the hallway stretched a little too long, like I was walking through a funhouse mirror version of my grandparents' home. The clock on the wall ticked unevenly, the second hand stuttering every couple beats before lurching forward. My reflection in the kitchen window didn't quite sync with me. Half a second too late when I lifted my glass of orange juice. And the worst part? Nobody else noticed. Grandma sat at the table humming softly as she buttered toast. Grandpa squinted at his newspaper, muttering about baseball scores. Everything was normal to them. Ordinary. I wanted to scream, "Can't you feel it? Don't you see it?" But I didn't. I was 10, and 10-year-olds don't articulate creeping existential dread. So I sat there quietly, chewing soggy cereal while shadows stretched too far across the floor. That night, couldn't resist. I watched the tape again, and that's when things really started to unravel. The tape had changed. Not just the little glitches I noticed before, but whole sequences. The faceless characters were gone from the opening. Instead, the cartoon began with static, then a close-up shot of a swing swaying back and forth. Back and forth, back and forth, my swing. From my school playground, even worse, there was someone on it. A kid, back turned to the camera, swinging slowly. I squinted, heart racing, and the longer I stared, the more certain I became that it was me. The same messy hair, the same ratty striped t-shirt. I slapped the pause button. The image froze, but the swing kept moving. Back and forth, I nearly cried. But I couldn't look away. And then in the frozen frame, the kid turned their head, just a fraction, and smiled. Not my smile. Something stretched too wide, showing too many teeth. The screen cut to static. I tore the tape from the VCR and threw it across the room, heart hammering so hard it hurt. I swore to myself I'd never watch it again, but I should have known better, because by then, I didn't have a choice. That night I woke up to whispers. At first, I thought it was my grandparents talking downstairs, but when I sat up in bed, I realized the voices were coming from the corner of my room, where the TV was. It wasn't on, but the screen flickered faintly, like static trapped under the glass. I held my breath, too scared to move. The whispers grew louder. Not English, not any language I knew, but I recognized the tone. It was the same warped mumbling from the tape. And then, just for a second, the screen showed a face, not a cartoon. Faced at mine, distorted, mouth open in a silent scream. I yanked the blanket over my head and stayed, like that until sunlight burned through the curtains. Things escalated fast after that. When I brushed my teeth, the reflection in the mirror didn't always stop when I did. When I walked past the darkened TV, I'd see movement on the glass, like something pacing back and forth just behind the screen. And the tape. The tape never stayed hidden, no matter where I shoved it. Under the bed, in the closet, even once out in the trash can, it always found its way back onto the TV stand. Waiting, daring me, and God help me, sometimes I gave in. Not because I wanted to, but because it felt like the tape was whispering directly to me when I tried to ignore it. A faint pressure in my ears, a buzzing in my skull, urging me to press play every time I did. The footage was different, darker. The faceless characters lingered longer in places I recognized. My school, my street, my grandparents' house. Sometimes I saw shapes moving in the windows. Sometimes I saw myself walking through the background. Once I caught my grandparents, or at least versions of them, sitting stiffly at the table, their mouths stretched into identical unnatural grins. The laughter track roared then, loud and broken, until I shut the tape off. By the end of the week, I couldn't tell the difference between the tape and real life anymore. When Grandma called me to dinner, her voice sounded warped, like it had been recorded and played back at half speed. When Grandpa shuffled past the living room, his footsteps looped, repeating the same 3 beats like a glitching audio file. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating. My entire world felt recorded on that cursed VHS tape, and I couldn't figure out if I was living my life or replaying it. One night, as I sat shaking in front of the blank TV, I realized something. The tape didn't want me to watch it. It wanted me inside it, and slowly, frame by frame, it was pulling me closer. I don't remember deciding to press play again. I just remember my thumb hovering over the VCR button, trembling, and then the soft click as the tape began to spool. The screen lit up instantly. No static this time, no warm-up hum. Straight into the footage, except it wasn't footage anymore. It was live. I was looking at my own living room again, but not from any angle that existed. The camera floated above me like an invisible bird. And there I was, sitting cross-legged on the carpet, staring at the screen, staring at myself. And the me on the screen looked straight up at the camera and grinned. Not my grin. The grin. The too wide one. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't work. Static crackled around my ankles. A faint flicker of black and white like pixels dissolving. The TV's hum rose in pitch until it became a whistle, drilling into my ears. My nose bled. My hands shook. On screen, my double stood, slowly, too slowly, frame by frame like stop motion. And then it stepped out of the TV. I fell backward, slamming into the coffee table. The thing that looked like me crawled forward, limbs jerking, face flickering between my features and those faceless placeholders from the tape. Its mouth opened, and a warped laugh track poured out like smoke. I screamed. It tilted its head, studying me like a predator. Frame by frame, it hissed in a voice spliced from my own. "You're almost ready." I scrambled for the remote, but it was gone. The VCR's buttons were gone too, just a smooth, blank strip of plastic where they'd been. The double lunged. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was back on the floor, alone. The TV was off, the tape was gone, but my hands weren't mine. They flickered, edges pixelating, veins like VHS tracking lines crawling beneath the skin. I staggered to the mirror above the fireplace. My reflection lagged again. Not half a second this time. A full second. When it finally moved, it smiled. And behind me, behind us, the TV turned itself on. The rest of that night is a blur of static and terror. I tried to run to my grandparents' room, but the hallway stretched and warped, frames looping backward like a bad edit. Every time I reached their door, I was back at the foot of the stairs. The whispers filled the house, louder now, an audience closing in. I heard snatches of my own voice among them, laughing, crying, begging. When I finally broke into their bedroom, the beds were empty. sheets perfectly smoothed. On the nightstand sat 2 black VHS tapes. Grandma, Grandpa, both warm to the touch. I dropped them and bolted back downstairs, tears streaming down my face. The TV glowed brighter and brighter until it filled the room like a portal. The static became a tunnel, a road stretching into a gray horizon. The same endless road from the tape's final. Soon, and on that road walked the faceless characters. Hundreds of them, all carrying VHS tapes clutched to their chests. Some were kids, some were adults, some were barely shapes anymore, their outlines glitching as they walked. I knew without knowing how that every one of them had watched a tape like mine. Every one of them had been pulled inside, and I was about to join them. The static road yawned open wider. My body moved without my permission, pixel by pixel, toward the screen. My hands reached out, fingers stretching, skin blurring like someone dragging a paintbrush across wet ink. "No," I croaked. "I'm not." A voice cut me off, my voice, but deeper, older, coming from the TV. "You've already been recorded," it said. "We're just pressing play." The living room collapsed into frames. The walls peeled away like background cells. The air smelled like old plastic and magnetic tape. I dug my nails into the carpet, trying to anchor myself. The fibers came up in long, black reels. The TV hissed. The road reached me, and then I was standing on it. Not in front of it. On it. The gray sky above me buzzed like a dying fluorescent bulb. The faceless characters shuffled past without looking at me, their tapes pressed to their chests like funeral urns. I turned, desperate to find an edge, an exit, something. But there was only the road, endless, and at the far horizon stood the double, the older me, still grinning, holding out a blank tape. "This is yours," it said. "We've been waiting." I shook my head, backing away. "I don't want it." "You already have it," it whispered. I looked down. A tape was in my hands, me 2023. The letters. Carved deep, my stomach lurched. My knees gave out. Around me, the audience laughed. That warped, dragging laugh track swallowing the sky. The double stepped closer. Its face flickered. Mine, then blank, then too wide, then mine again. "Frame by frame," it said. "Until you're just another episode." It pressed its hands to my shoulders, cold, plastic. And for the first time I felt the tape not just in my hands but inside me. Every memory, every heartbeat spooling out like magnetic ribbon. My body began to dissolve into static. "Stop!" I screamed. "Please stop." The double leaned close. Its mouth opened, and in my own voice it whispered, "Rewind." I woke up on the living room floor. The TV was off. The VCR empty. The house silent. For a moment, I thought it had been a nightmare. But then I saw the tape on the carpet. Warm, heavy. No label this time. Just a single line scratched into the plastic. "Play me." I couldn't bring myself to destroy the tape. I thought about it. God, I thought about it. Taking a hammer to it, snapping it in half, burning it until it melted into black sludge. But every time I picked it up, something inside me froze. Like my body wasn't my own anymore. It wanted to be kept. And deep down I knew I was already part of it. For days after that night, nothing felt real. My reflection kept lagging just a little, like the world was a second behind me. The sound of static followed me into silence. When I showered, when I tried to sleep, even when I pressed my palms over my ears. At work, my co-workers' voices blurred, like someone was fast-forwarding and rewinding them mid-sentence. Once I caught one of them staring at me for too long, their face shimmering, trying to hold on to shape. I stopped showing up after that. I shut myself in my apartment, blinds drawn, the tape hidden in the closet. I told myself I'd never play it again, told myself I'd let it rot there forever. But every night, I heard it, not the TV, not the VCR, the tape. Itself whirring, clicking, like it was rewinding itself in the dark, the breaking. Point came when I dreamed, or maybe it wasn't a dream. I was standing in the endless gray road again, but this time, it wasn't faceless people passing me by. It was everyone I'd ever known. My grandparents, old classmates, neighbors, people I'd forgotten about years ago. Each of them clutched a tape. Each tape had a name carved into it, and when they looked at me, their faces blurred, their features dissolving into static. The double stood at the horizon, waiting. Always waiting, do you understand yet? It called out. Its voice was mine, but stretched thin, like someone had dragged my vocal cords across a reel. I shook my head, trembling. What is this? Why me? The double smiled. Not just you, all of you. It raised a hand, and suddenly the road stretched sideways, unspooling into countless lanes. Each lane filled with people, all clutching their tapes, all walking the same direction. The sky above them rippled with screens, every cloud flashing distorted footage. Children laughing, families eating dinner. 1,000 lives looping endlessly. It wasn't a nightmare, it was an archive. We record everything, the double said. Every face, every word, every moment. Frame by frame. Life itself is just playback. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. You thought your memories were yours? It continued. They were always ours. Every birthday, every tear, every scream. You've only been watching what we allowed. The tapes the faceless people carried weren't just cursed recordings. They were their lives, condensed, cataloged, stored. And mine was next. I woke up gasping, my throat raw like I had been screaming for hours. The tape was sitting on my chest, not in the closet anymore. Its label had changed again. The carved letters glowed faintly in the dark. Final cut. That's when I realized the truth. The VHS wasn't cursed in the way I thought. It wasn't some haunted object floating from house to house, choosing victims. It was a system, a library, a network of reels stretching back decades. Every tape was someone's life. Every lost recording wasn't lost at all. It had been filed away. And the laugh track, the whispers, the static that clawed at the edges of my ears, that was the audience. Someone was watching. Not just watching me, watching us. I tore through the closet, yanking out old boxes, flipping through dusty home videos my grandparents had kept. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, vacations. The labels blurred before my eyes, warping until every one of them read the same thing. Final cut. The tapes hummed together, syncing, spooling in rhythm. And for the first time, I understood what had happened to my grandparents. Why their beds were empty that night. They weren't gone, they'd been filed. Their lives archived, frame by frame, just like mine was about to be. I don't know how long I sat there on the floor, surrounded by humming tapes, the glow from their labels flickering across my face. But eventually, the TV turned itself on. No static this time, just a black screen, a blinking cursor, waiting. I didn't touch the remote. I didn't move at all. But the cursor began to type on its own, letters appearing one by one in a pale gray font. Are you ready to be remembered? I tried to answer. My throat locked. My jaw wouldn't move, the cursor blinked. Play, and the screen cut to black. The next morning, the tapes were gone. Every single one. The closet was empty, the shelves bare. The only thing left was the VCR, still humming softly, like something inside it was alive. And when I glanced at the reflection in the dark TV screen, it didn't lag this time. It moved too soon, like it was a frame ahead of me, and it was smiling.